Clemson is ready to take on LSU's rebuilt defense, and I've got news for LSU fans. Harold Perkins can't be everywhere at once, and we'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, and part-time host and producer over at 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're an everydayer, you know exactly how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content starting back here now, Monday through Friday, every day of the weekday as we get into the college football season. And in between episodes, don't forget to follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we can talk about Clemson all the time. Today's episode has got a lot to discuss. We have a lot to discuss, and mainly going to look at the defensive side of the ball for LSU. You know, I've covered the running backs, the quarterback, the wide receivers, and the offensive line. I've looked at where their biggest strength is. We know their quarterback and their wide receiver speed. That's their biggest strength. We also know that they have a great running back room as well. We know where their biggest weakness is on the offense, and that is their offensive line and that experience there on that side of the ball. But now let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball, because as we continue to paint this clearer picture of LSU, we need to figure out what Clemson can do and what LSU is going to do on the other side of the ball, and that is the defense. What kind of defense will Brian Kelly bring to Clemson, South Carolina on August 30th? We will kind of take a look and see. Now, the main thing, the one player that is kind of the biggest weapon, I believe, on the defensive side of the ball for LSU has got to be by far Harold Perkins Jr. He is not just another linebacker. He is a moving chess piece that Brian Kelly is going to move around the field, around the board, if you will, to create doubt in Cade Klubnik's mind and frustrate Garrett Riley even before the ball is snapped. So he is a guy who you will not be able to ignore pre-snap, during the snap, before the game, after the game. He is that guy. Now, the thing is, last season, he was a little bit all over the place. They didn't know where they were going to put him. They kind of moved him around a ton, and then he got injured. But still, he's back from injury now, and Clemson needs to treat him the same way that you would treat a guy who's getting ready to go to the NFL. He is a game-changing defensive player who just happens to play linebacker, and he is going to play more than just linebacker, honestly, because when you look at 2024, even though it was cut short, he played a lot of different alignments. He played a lot of different positions on defensive snaps last season. The usage rate for all where he was used across the board was extremely high until he got injured. Now, Brian Kelly says that early on that they're going to put him into a new full-time position that is called the star position. And it is going to, they said, quote, cut the leash off of Harold Perkins Jr. And I hope that he didn't ever play with a leash, but if he did, that kind of scares me. It should scare you. It definitely scares me, because if you're going to let Harold Perkins Jr. run wild, then that is going to be an absolute problem. He is going to blitz from all over the field. He can also drop back and play coverage when he needs to. It depends on what is needed for that specific drive, series, situation, play, whatever it may be. Pre-snap, Harold Perkins Jr. can do just about anything. And he's going to keep you guessing. He's going to keep Cade Klubnik guessing. He's going to keep us guessing as fans about where he's going to be. And you need to know where he's going to be at all times. So when you see number 7 on the field, you need to know. You need to pay attention to that. And if you are Clemson's offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, you will also be paying attention to that. This move, allowing him to be in a solidified role that's mainly just made up just for him, to me, is where he can be, you know, an edge rusher when he needs to be, and he can get out into the seam and rob in a robber type role as well. kind of like a Khalil Barnes or an Isaiah Simmons or, kind of maybe a Wade Woodaz can be, where you're not only an outside linebacker, you can do a little bit of everything out there. Very versatile player that Clemson and Clemson fans need to be aware of. Now, Clemson should treat him like, honestly, you're not going to be able to completely solve him. You're not going to be able to completely shut down what he's going to be able to do. If he's truly healthy and recovered from the injury, and he is in this position that helps him flourish, then to me, it's not about solving Harold Perkins Jr. for Cade Klubnik or Garrett Riley. It may be as simple as just trying to get away from him and avoid him at all costs. Maybe it's just more about how to manage him properly. Cade Klubnik spends his time on every play, pre-snap. He needs to be able to locate where he's at, but not to a point where it's throwing the offensive timing off, not to the point where he's allowing number 7 to get into his head. The better strategy to me is to not let him dictate what you want to do, but still play your game. You're going to get an occasional negative play because of how good he is. He's going to force a negative play here or there. But the question is, how big of a negative play will it be? One or two here and there is okay for me, but over 4 quarters. But if you allow him to dictate an entire drive, that's where you'll have a problem. Now, when Perkins is aligned in certain spots on the field, he helps make the rest of his team better. When he was actually moved out into covering the slot position, the team actually improved in their sack rate overall. And that's, to me, evidence that he's one of those guys that is forcing quarterbacks to hold on to the ball a little bit too long when he gets out there. Whit Weeks is also returning from injury as well, and that's going to be another guy that they can work together really well to allow either one of those guys to have freedom to go after the quarterback. The edge, to me, is going to be really, really stressed out for Clemson because of how good Harold Perkins Jr. is. So Clemson's counter needs to be able to punish the aggressiveness that LSU is probably going to be. And they've got to stay on schedule. Again, they cannot let number 7 by himself dictate everything. It is going to be hard. Again, you do have to kind of figure out where he's at to a point, right? To a point. So a lot of experts out there are saying that Clemson, should look at RPOs, quick slants, bubble screens. And I know when I say that, I just made every Clemson fan throw up. I get it. Bubble screens, we don't ever want to see those ever again. But there may have to be some sort of screen game possible because of the running backs that Clemson has in Gideon Davidson and Adam Randall, who are both guys that can go out to the flats and catch the ball and run with space. And also because of the slot receivers that Clemson has as well in those slants. I believe that Clemson will be able to do that and have some success. Also, I can see where Clemson would need to use and utilize their running backs and not only just running backs, but tight ends in order to exploit some of that aggressiveness that you're going to get from those 2 linebackers in Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins Jr. Again, the funniest thing or the most intriguing thing, again, for me is that when Harold Perkins Jr. was off the ball and off the edge into the slot position, the sack percentage increased. So you cannot allow him to take all of your attention and then give up a sack to Pyburn or to Patrick Payton or anyone else out there. This star position is going to be one that's intriguing for me. Clemson is getting their own tiger position as well. This is the new age of defensive alignments and what coordinators are doing, having one of their best players fit a specific role, but having that role also extremely versatile so it keeps offenses on their toes. Now, again, Harold Perkins Jr. is going to win some. He's going to probably have a highlight reel worthy play, but you cannot allow him to wreck a game. Clemson needs to identify him quickly, and Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley need to figure out what their answers are going to be to each of the different concepts that he brings to the table, or that the LSU defense is going to bring to the table, because of how versatile he is. So I know you know this. As LSU fans, if you're watching, you know Harold Perkins Jr. is the real deal. For Clemson fans who may not be aware of Harold Perkins Jr., hopefully now you know he is the real deal, but he cannot be the guy that wrecks everything for you. You have to pay attention to him, but only so much. All right, we're gonna continue the show talking about another guy that could be a guy that really disrupts Clemson, and he is a guy that came from the ACC. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab a last minute ticket without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast, simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Now, during the spring, I had some friends that went to the Clemson baseball game against Louisville, I believe, and when the Gametime app opened up, they saw 4 tickets, third base line, for less than they thought they would get, and it was a huge value. They got some great tickets. They got to see the seat and preview it before they purchased. 10 minutes later, the tickets were on their phone, and they had saved a ton of money so they could go get some food over there. And Gametime turned a last-minute idea into an easy way to get to the ballpark. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So the next guy on my list of here to talk about has got to be a guy from Florida State, Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton collected a big NIL deal payday over at Florida State. And honestly, my suspicion is that he got that big payday and then kind of slacked off. He was pretty frustrated as well. But you got to be careful if you're LSU. Maybe just don't wet the beak a little bit too much. Now he's over in Baton Rouge, and he is going to be one of those guys that's supposed to be, kind of the real deal, the savior, if you will, to their defensive end issues and their edge rushing problems. Clemson's left tackles, to me, will be left tackle and right tackle will be stressed out when it comes this August. Payton tallied just 4 sacks last season, 480 pass rush snaps in 2024, pressure rate, and ranks outside of the top 50 in the SEC. And, he mentioned that he was frustrated by the new coordinator, Tony White, who ultimately he felt like made the decision to put him into the portal. LSU signed him, brought him in because of the departures where, they really only had a handful of career sacks left on the roster after the offseason. Defensive coordinator Blake Butler believes that a clean slate for Payton will be able to help that push on the defensive line and be able to free up Patrick Payton's counter move that seemed to really disappear last season. So LSU is going to rely on Patrick Payton to bring some pressure. But to be honest with you, we don't really know what you're going to get from him. There's a lot of players on this LSU roster, whether the LSU fans want to believe this or not. There's more transfer players on the defense than there are on the offense. But if you look at it, I'll do a quick count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 out of the 2 deep. So what is that? 44. So 18 out of 44. So almost 50% of your first and second string were players that were not on the team last season. And I don't think that LSU understands that as much. Clemson does not have that at all. The cohesion, the continuity, the carryover from last season to this season, I mean, it's almost exclusively Clemson. I would say 98%. I mean, Clemson's really only brought in what? 3 transfer portal players compared to 18. And those 3 are going to be in the first and second string, but 3's not even 10%. Whereas you have LSU at almost 50% of their roster are guys that were not on the team last season. If you throw in the freshmen that you have in there, you definitely have 50%. So what can Patrick Payton bring to the table? This is where I also say it is kind of funny how the SEC is so much better, but to replenish your team, they went and got like 5 or 6 guys from the ACC. And if the ACC is absolutely trash and garbage, why didn't you just pick up guys from the SEC, the almighty SEC? I mean, even a transfer player from Kentucky and Mississippi State and Vanderbilt would be better than anybody in the ACC, right? Well, apparently not. Apparently the ACC does have talented players. And there are some LSU fans that believe that the ACC have some talented players, but there are also some ACC or SEC fans that just say the ACC has nothing that the SEC could ever want. And we know that that's not true. What will Patrick Payton bring to the table? Because he did have a big fall off after being paid a ton. Was it because he wasn't utilized properly? LSU, to me, won't be able to rely on him alone. They'll need to kind of use other players that they also have brought in, like Jack Pyburn from Florida. Now, they have some guys that Clemson will need to be concerned with. Clemson will need to slide protection. They may need to chip Payton with their running backs. But they need to be careful because, again, when you match up with Harold Perkins Jr. on one side or another, I do believe that the biggest strength that you have with LSU right now, outside of Harold Perkins Jr. by himself, maybe the linebackers, I would say one, but the defensive ends, they brought in 2 really good defensive ends that you have to be concerned with in Pyburn and Payton. So if I'm LSU, I'm bringing the heat on the edge, rep after rep. I don't know if there's any complementary threat from the inside either. Dominic McKinley and Ahmad Bro, guys, both true sophomores. Now they have some guys behind them that are transfer portal players to kind of fill in the spots. Maybe they'll take over the role as well. But again, the more you bring in your transfer portal guys on game 1, the more you don't know what you're going to get. And you don't know how complementary they're going to be of each other. So I'm really curious to see. Jimari Butler, how will he do? Will he, rotate? How often will he rotate with Patrick Payton? To me, I'm curious to see because the tackle position is the most experienced for Clemson, maybe outside of Walker Parks. But Clemson's offensive line has been playing with each other for 4 years now, alongside each other for 4 years now. Outside of one player that they're having to replace, Clemson is able to hold up against this pressure. They're going to bring a lot of energy. I know that. But I'm curious how it's all going to work out because Pyburn, after all of the hype that we've seen from the transfer portal, statistically, he wasn't awesome at pressuring the quarterback last season, getting in the backfield. So I'm curious to see how everything's going to work out for this defensive line front. We know, to me, my number 1 is going to be the linebacker in Harold Perkins Jr. And then the edges, I do like them for sure. But was it just a one-off that Patrick Payton wasn't in a spot where he needed to be successful? Or was there something bigger going on to where he's maybe hit a plateau that he can't come out of? I'm just looking for some consistency. I'm curious to see how much he will be able to beat Blake Miller. Clemson cannot allow these two guys on the edge, along with Perkins Jr., to get after it every single play. So we'll see how good Matt Luke and his offensive line stands up to this defensive end group that I think is pretty solid, to be honest with you. The stat lines from last season are a little bit quiet for those guys. But to me, that is one of those matchups that I have circled for August 30th, because there's a huge unknown there. There's a lot of things that we understand from the Clemson perspective and the continuity perspective on Clemson. But will this be a transfer portal heavy team that can't get on the same page? Or will it be one that just added fuel to the fire and they all just click immediately? I think we'll have to wait and see. I don't have the exact answer for you, but I know this, that it will be a great matchup on August 30th. All right, we're going to finish up the show talking about that one area that I think there is a chemistry problem for LSU. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, you can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. In addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When I first linked my accounts with Monarch, the spending breakdown really opened my eyes how much I was paying for a subscription. Yep, those streaming services got me. Oh, by the way, my new aviation apps that I have, they also got me. And a few trials that I had forgotten about as well. A lot of money each month that I was giving away that I got back. Seeing all that in one place helped me understand what I needed to do and helped me manage every dollar, have it mapped out on a single dashboard, checking it day to day, making sure my decisions were made easy, intentional, and simple. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, we're going to finish up the show here talking about that chemistry problem. Now, timing beats raw talent when the talent has not been rehearsed. LSU has a lot of talent. And that's what I always hear in the comments. Talent, 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 talent. Best of the transfer portal. But Clemson's receivers have what LSU does not have in their secondary. And that is timing, togetherness, rehearsal with their quarterback. I think LSU's defensive backs are still learning each other. They don't even know each other's voices yet. And the mismatch could be a huge eye-opener for LSU and could be big time to decide the game before halftime. LSU has completely revamped its backfield. They've got Mansour Delane, Virginia Tech guy, Jakeem Jackson, Tamarcus Cooley, AJ Halsey. They've got these guys from the transfer portal. All four, again, are extremely talented. But we know, we've heard the rumors. It's not lost on me that you're concerned, as an LSU fan, you're concerned with their coverages, with their continuity, with their cohesion. They've busted coverages multiple times in the spring that have led to big-time touchdowns from the LSU offense. These notes from the closed scrimmage, yeah, we're hearing about them. Blake Baker teaches matchup patterns and split-second communication. And the offseason clearly still has shown that there are some problems with LSU and their matchups. Clemson has star power. They have talent at the wide receiver room. They have talent at the quarterback room. Clemson's biggest star power, though, could possibly be the continuity as an underrated superpower. Cade Klubnik enters now his third season, and with Garrett Riley, his top 3 targets have returned. These concepts that he's been building on for the past couple of seasons, they're getting more consistent. His muscle memory is to a point where he is able, and now this should be the year where he gets his big-time NFL contract because of his success. This ability and continuity on the offense is going to be able to help Clemson get into a rhythm early, and LSU will not be able to replicate this. They will not be able to have this in game 1, maybe later on in the season. But I truly believe that with 18 out of 44 players from the transfer portal, 20 out of 44 were not on the team last season for LSU. While Clemson is returning 86% of his offensive production, only losing their tight end and their running back, the highest figure in college football at the highest level, that cannot be discounted by any means. Every formation, every check from Cade Klubnik, every adjustment, every route run, everything that you're going to throw at this offense, they should be ready for, because they've been playing together and they've gone through these issues. Mansour Delane excelled in man coverage in Virginia Tech, but has he been able to trade off switch releases against an offense that has 3 vertical threats like Garrett Riley has? Delane has not matched up against Clemson and had success. So he's going to have to meet this Clemson offense that's going to bring a lot of talent to the table. And not just talent, because Clemson has continuity and consistency and returning production. LSU could have a big problem with secondary communication. If these guys cannot communicate well with each other from the very start, and against Clemson in Death Valley, in Clemson Memorial Stadium, with the Clemson faithful behind them, it could be a big problem for communication busts and big plays and Cade Klubnik and that Clemson offense to get on the board quickly, often, and in a hurry. Adam Randall, Gideon Davidson are question marks, but could produce in the screen game that could continue to stress out those safeties in that secondary who cannot or have not had opportunities like Clemson has had to work well together. Creeping in on each other's zones, not handing off properly, you're going to leave things unguarded, and that's where I would be concerned if I'm LSU. Now, Clemson definitely has what they need to get as far as they can get into the postseason. I truly believe it. One thing that Dabo Swinney has done so well is avoid that roster churn to where your team is like a Brad Brownell team. No disrespect, Brad, but we know we have no idea who the next 5 guys are for the basketball team year in and year out. LSU, whether they want to admit it or not, their secondary and their edge, while they may be extremely talented, and I've said that word too much because honestly, that's all you tell me in the comments. Talent, talent, talent. They're talented, but can they work well together? I expect Clemson to take advantage immediately. Dabo Swinney knows how to do that. and he has focused on retention as much as he has on recruiting so that he doesn't have to be in the situation that LSU is in. Expect Cade Klubnik to test that communication early, to go after those verticals, to go after those combination routes, and to force the secondary to trade off responsibilities on the fly and really expose them early and hopefully light up the scoreboard. If that happens and it all works out in Clemson's favor, I believe the game could be over at halftime. The chemistry for LSU, boy, they better be working on it the next 30 days because it is a big concern whether they want to admit it or not. All right. Hey, that's it for this show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan of the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope you've enjoyed the show today. Thank you so much, Clemson fans. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.